Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 221. Today we are talking, where is your patch and why are you not developing? Today we're going to unpack how people kind of get it a bit wrong when it comes to finding their patch and learning about it, and a few reasons why you're not developing even though you really want to. So let's jump on in, episode 221. Hello and welcome to episode 221. Hello, Bob.
G'day, Hilary.
What's your tip for the week before we just go straight in there?
Oh, persistence pays off.
Oh, it sounds to me like you've planned it.
That's persistent. Yeah. I was thinking about that earlier because we just acquired, in the process of acquiring a new opportunity, new development type opportunity, but we were very specific about what we wanted and it was quite niche. And we spent quite a bit of time trying to find a deal that worked and nail it down. And we went very close on one, missed out. And finally we got one. And that's taken a while. On and off, that could have taken up to a year for that particular type of deal that we ended up with.
For this one. And yes, and you know what? Persistence pays off. I love it. And you're right about the latest development. It's exciting. For those of you who are developing right now, or for those of you who are yet to, it is exciting when you get a new site. We only found out Monday morning and we were like, yes, we got it. And yeah, it is such a cool feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, particularly if you've worked hard for it.
Yeah.
And
when you go close so many times, you think you've got one and then no, you didn't. And then you're just sometimes dealing with people who don't kind of, if the vendor doesn't really understand some things because they just don't really get development, and it gets a bit messy, and then you walk away and you're upset and you've got to get, that stuff happens.
So how you deal with the disappointment of coming so close.
And you're right, it's persistence. Persistence pays off.
That's what I said.
Great tip, Bob. So episode 221 today, we are talking, where is your patch and why are you not developing? Before we get into it though, the book this week, Cameron Sufter. Cameron just came to our 3-day workshop. How good was it, Cameron? It was so good. So that will be in the post to you. And thanks for your email. And thanks for saying how much you liked the workshop. So I would love to keep up with how you go after attending the workshop. And it's always exciting to hear from our students and see what they do. So let us know. Bob, we're starting with this one today because it is a lot around why people either don't get started, don't, take enough action, or they think they are, but they're not really. And some of that comes down to their patch. So do you want to unpack that one, patch that one up for me?
Thanks for that. Yeah, well, let's talk about what a patch is in case somebody's new to our podcast. So as a developer, we need to choose a few things, type of project that we're going to do and how much money we got or don't have to do a project, but particularly location. Location is very important. And so that's what we call our patch. It's where we choose a location that we want to do a development in. Why would we? Why would we choose a patch per se?
Well, pick me.
Pick me, tell me.
Well, I'm thinking a lot of it is to do with, we need to understand what's going on in a market that we want to develop in. And that's the main reason that we need to have a patch, so we fully understand everything that happens in there. So if you live in Sydney or Brisbane or Perth or Melbourne or wherever, you don't sort of think, I'm going to develop in Sydney or I'm going to develop in the Sunshine Coast, or you might say Sunshine Coast, but you get quite specific, and that way you can learn a lot more about it.
That's exactly right. Think of somewhere, Sydney and Melbourne, I think they're about the same size population-wise. I mean, they're huge, and there's so many markets within markets. I don't know how many. Say Sydney, there could be 30 different markets in there. Some to do with location. Obviously, pricing is a big thing as well, and it's just too big a market to be able to know the detail that we need to know as a property developer when we're looking for a site. You just couldn't do it. Think of the really expensive land around the harbour. You think of Neutral Bay or Potts Point, those really expensive suburbs. Or you can go out a long way. You can go to Parramatta. You can go beyond Parramatta out to Penrith Way, or down to the southwest. Like, it's just such an it's enormous area geographically, but also from a price point of view as well. And you can't be an expert on everywhere.
And also, Bob, not just geographic and price, it's also product related.
Mm.
You're not going to go to a very well-off area and build something for renters that's budget, because that's just not going to happen. But you're also not going to go to an area that's a little bit cheaper and build a mansion or something quite luxurious. So and those are just extreme examples, but there are so many examples, because you've got how many 4s or 7s or duplex or apartments, or there are so many things that you could develop. And that's why understanding your patch it all falls into that, because you need to know what that market wants. So the patch also includes what the buyer is wanting.
Yeah, a lot of variables there. You just talk about a number of products, little subdivisions and build a house. We're talking duplexes, townhouses, probably not apartments when we're starting off. But, that's another product. Or there's specialised things like rooming houses and student accommodation. There's just so many types of product. Then you've got the standards of finish is it a lower standard, mid-range, high? That'll depend on the area, the locality, and you better get it right. And also geographically. And what does the market want there? And they might want different types of product, different levels, standards of finish. A lot of variables there.
Oh, so many variables. And even taking it back to where you started this podcast, where you said persistence pays off, and we were looking for a specific thing. And that's like you with your patch, like our specificity, is that the word? But we were specifically looking for a childcare, and that has to tick all those boxes within a patch as well. It almost changes the way you look at a patch. Your patch becomes different because it's about a specific type of development. But these are all micro and macro moves that fit together to create the perfect development that's going to be lucrative for the developer.
Well, that's something interesting you just brought up when you talked about childcare, because we've been talking about narrowing your focus, narrowing your patch down so that you really understand pricing, product, all those things. But then when you've got a specific product like childcare, then you can't just relate it to a small patch. You have to then look at a larger area because it's specific. And you'd want to look at many suburbs for childcare, because it changes. A lot of demographics. I mean, I imagine it's the same sort of thing when people, big developers looking for shopping centres, very driven by demographics. Childcare, the same thing. You could look at an area where there's already an oversupply of childcare. There's even some empty places in some of the centres. Well, probably not the place you go and build a new one, or even get an approval for a new one. So that's a wide-ranging type of, what do you call it, location. But most of the people, certainly the people within our community, we're looking at specific products, and generally the smaller ones, small subdivisions, townhouses, duplexes, that sort of thing typically. And that's where you really need to choose a patch and narrow down and become an expert in that area. That's why you can't take on a whole city. Imagine in somewhere like Sydney, the phone rings, it's a real estate agent. They're down in the Shire somewhere, down Cronulla way. Oh, I've got an opportunity here to do such and such. Oh, okay. And you'd be thinking, okay, I haven't been there before. I wonder what the pricing, what should I pay for a site down there? What do they sell for? Who are the agents down there that I can talk to? Before you can work that out, you get another call from somebody, up north. Probably 2 hours away from your first call. Oh, what are they up there? What's it worth there? Same thing, and you'd be all like, then you get one out of Parramatta somewhere or Penrith. Like, you'd just be chasing your tail. You'd never get to make a decision. What had happened if it was a good deal? You'd be so slow to make a decision because it'd take you so long to understand pricing and who the movers and shakers are, who to ask. Yeah, if it was any good to get snapped up, who would it get snapped up by?
The smart developer who's done the work and knows their patch.
Exactly. Somebody who knows that area and's dug deep on it, understands that. And that is the whole purpose of choosing a patch, digging really deep on it, understanding all the ins and outs, and the movements and the prices in there, and so that you can make a good commercially sound decision, but make it fast. Because if it's a good deal, you have to act fast.
Correct. And I suppose for you listening today, and you're thinking, oh, I feel like that, because then it almost, you feel like that you're looking at sites all over the place, or maybe you sort of think you've got your patch half nailed. But what then the question becomes is, how much can I afford? And so once you've got your patch, you really need to, well, I put it the other way around, really. I'd start off with what you can afford before, and that might determine your patch, and then find out, are sites working right in that patch with what you're able to afford? And if not, what do you need to do to be able to afford something that does work? There are so many variables. I see it, but when we're talking about property development, as cogs all fitting together, and they just roll, like lots of them.
Like gears that mesh together,
yeah,
and produce forward motion.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. When you were just talking before, I was like, oh, that's kind of, it feels a bit like that for me, because there are so many things that have to happen and you have to understand when you're doing property development. And there's lots of little things, and getting them right is really important. And that's why I put at the end of this intro, where is your patch and why are you not developing? And what I know to be true is most people try and look for sites without having enough knowledge on what they need to understand first. One being, how much do I actually need? And just all the things that go into determining whether they are in the right patch for themselves. Would you agree?
Yeah, well, you raised the thing about affordable. What can I afford? And it may be that you can't afford yourself to do even a small project somewhere. Well, that's okay. At least if you know that up front, you can think, well, look, I'm going to have to get an investor. And so, as I often say to people, if you have enough money to do a property development, then you're just going down a path. Choose a patch, choose your product, you can afford it, and then dig down deep, really understand that, become an expert, find yourself a deal and do it. If you don't have enough money to do a deal with your own funds, then there's two paths that you have to go down parallel. And the other path, one is the pure property development path. The other path is the investor path. And so you need to go down that concurrently. It runs parallel with the other path. It's slightly more complex. It's more work. And that is to get an investor, at least one, and get them into your project to help you.
It becomes
finance
another cog in that.
Yeah, well, this is this new analogy I've never thought of before, where you're likening property development almost to a gearbox.
Yes.
That's a new one. I haven't thought of that before.
Yes. But there is, I think what you're saying is, it's understanding where you are on the journey, so you know what road you have to take. And that's often when I have a conversation with somebody, when they book in to have a chat with me, I ask a few questions to understand the road that they're going to need to take, because I need to understand what they've got, and then that determines the road. It really does. Because then once you've got the road, then the patch becomes a little bit more clear, and all the next steps all fall into place. So I do find that a lot of people are looking. We just did a great induction with one of our new mentoring students yesterday, and he admitted to that. He goes, I've just been looking everywhere. And he'd spent so much time, but just didn't have enough of that fine-tuned knowledge to know that he was going down the right track. And I think people just waste so much time when you're blundering. I think that's an aggressive word.
Staggering around like a drunk person.
Yes. Yeah, it's like blind man's bluff.
Yeah.
It's like you've got a blindfold on, you're walking around and you're reaching out for stuff, but you're just not sure of the direction. And I think that's what a lot of people do without realizing, and they're excited. How many people do we talk to that are excited about property development?
There's almost three things happening simultaneously here. One is, what can you afford to do? In other words, can you do a small project yourself, or do you need an investor? Then what type of product, what sort of project you're thinking of? And there might be a couple to select here. It could be, a small subdivision, but you might also say, well, look, I'm happy to do a 2 or 3 lot subdivision and build some houses, or maybe a nice upmarket duplex, or maybe even 3 townhouses. So you could be looking at all 3 of those products, because they meet your criteria in terms of what you can afford, let's say. And so that's the product. So first one's the money, next is the product, and then then the patch, because they all have to, like you say, gears meshing on the patch. So in that patch, can you afford to do a duplex or a 2-lot subby, which would require less money, but then if you're going to build houses on it, then it require a bit more. And that's how you start to narrow it down. Then when you've found the patch, you have to decide, is it profitable enough to do one of those projects in this patch? Because not every patch at any one time is profitable for a property development project.
Exactly. And you'll probably find that most aren't. So where you just explained at the beginning that it took us so long to find this particular one because we were looking for something in particular. And that took so long to find it.
That was a particular product.
Yeah.
We had the product in mind.
Yeah.
It was in very short supply.
Yes.
And it wasn't just the product. We wanted that product to tick several boxes. And
Yes.
so we were just so specific about what we wanted to do that it took a while.
Can you just hear what you're saying there about being specific? So we weren't playing blind man's bluff. We weren't roaming around with a blindfold on, aimlessly looking. We knew exactly what it was that we were looking for.
Yeah.
And because we got there. But I think that what people need to understand, that's just the moving part of the finance and then of the patch. And then the next moving part is understanding how to run those numbers correctly and the feasibility. And I think that people get more hung up on the feasibility than anything. Bob, do you?
Numbers scare some people.
Yeah.
You think of feasibility, it's just a profit and loss statement. In its simplest form, you got sales less costs equals profit. And that's the same with pretty much any business. In our case, sales are what we sell the 2 lots or the duplex units or whatever. Where people can come unstuck is the costs, which means they can't calculate their profit because they're not sure, well, what are the costs and how much are they? I'm doing a duplex and I have to get an architect to draw me up some plans to get an approval. What's an architect charge? What does it cost me to survey the lot? What's a town planner charge? And this is where people, if they're not educated and not getting educated, that's where it can all get a bit hard.
Mm.
And so getting the numbers right, as we know in property development, it's all about numbers. It's all about showing profitability, not just for yourself, but for the financier.
And we say that often, and I'm going to drive that one home. The numbers are so much for not just you, but the financier. And when you understand that, it becomes even more important because when you go to construction and you need to borrow money, if it doesn't stack up, you won't get that money. And it's important that those numbers are correct. It's important that your feasibility is correct, and it's important that you can present that to a broker or financier so you know exactly what you're asking for, and they go, yes, perfect, we're definitely funding this.
Yeah, because it has to show enough profit. So there'll be benchmarks set by the financier, the valuer, and the broker will know those in terms of profitability.
I feel like we're freaking people out right now.
No, well, you don't want to do it if it doesn't make enough profit.
No, but I mean, we start talking about values and like all the different roles of the people that you have on your development.
It's just a process.
Yeah, it's a simple process you follow, but you just have to follow the process of knowing what to understand about your patch, the process of knowing how much money you have and how much you're going to need, the process of understanding the feasibility and who comes into play in all those places and their roles and what they do. It's a process that anybody can do, but you have to follow the process.
Yeah, so let's go back to this profitability thing, because not every patch is profitable at any one time. An example could be, let's say there's an area where people start to do some duplexes and they're well received by the market. You can buy the land at a good enough price to build and sell at a profit. But then a lot of people start to then buy land in there and get approvals for duplexes. And then you get to a point where there's a lot coming on the market, and that's an oversupply thing. And it can happen, but it can happen in a particular area. And so if there's an oversupply of a particular product in an area, what can happen is that the sale prices then can come back a bit in order for people to sell in a very competitive market. And as a result, the new sale price level might be such that you're not making the required amount of profit. You still make a profit, but not enough to make the financier really happy. And so for a while, that patch is no longer profitable to do a duplex there. But that's not forever, because what happens, particularly when you get a bit of oversupply, is people can see it happening. They can tell, there's a lot of approvals going through. Therefore, there's going to be a lot of construction. Therefore, there's going to be a lot of sales. And that's what happens. You end up with quite a lot of product. And where it may have taken, on average 5 weeks to sell a duplex unit, as in this example, it's now starting to take not 5, but 8, 10, 12. And so some pricing is going to come back because some people need to sell, and it's costing you money every day on interest. So it might be better off selling a bit cheaper and saving the interest in the long run. So people stop buying sites there because they see this oversupply. And so there's a lag. Some people that had bought sites may have gotten a development permit, but now they think, there's oversupply. I'm not going to build.
Hold off for a wee bit.
I'll sit on it for a while. And those that had already committed to build will build. And if there is an oversupply there, there's different things they might do. They might just decide, well, look, I'll sell one and rent the other one out, or I'll rent them both out, or I'll sell them both, and I may have to bring my price back a bit, which reduces my profit. And instead of making $500,000 profit, I'm prepared to make $300,000 because there's nowhere else to go at that point. It's already financed. You don't have to prove anything to the financier or the valuer at that point. All these things can happen. But then there's a lag. Like I said, people aren't buying sites. People aren't getting approvals. And down the track a bit, when that oversupply gets sold down, you can end up with an undersupply or at least equilibrium. And often an oversupply ends up within 1 to 2 years an undersupply.
Mm.
And so that's a counter-cyclical thing for buying sites. And of course, what's difficult to guess is how long will it take the oversupply to get soaked up? So
is there a rule of thumb with that,
No.
Bob? Never. No, it's just whatever.
Well, it depends on the market, how hot it is. There's a lot of variables in there.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is there's an example of a patch that doesn't work. So if you walked in there today and you saw, there's quite a few, in this case, the example we're using, duplexes for sale, and I can see, there's a few there. They were asking 1.8, now they're asking 1.7. So I could, and then, you do your numbers and they don't quite work. Now that's not forever, because in 18 months' time, that patch might be up and running again because all that stock that has been sold.
Mm.
And now there's could be a shortage or it could be an equilibrium. And there's different reasons why a patch might not work now, not just oversupply. I just gave that as an example as to why it might work in the future. So you never say never in property development. But that's an example of a patch. You could choose that patch. And then when you have a really good look around, understand what things are selling for, what sites are being bought for, what the end product's being sold for, and you have a look at how much product's on the market, how long it takes to sell that product, and you can think, well, no, I'm not going to add to the oversupply. I'll look for another patch. Sometimes you have to.
And also, when you're talking about patches not working, always got to revisit an old patch because, like you were talking, it changes on the way, in time. Patches can change their sale prices and demographics move and undersupplies and oversupplies, all of that stuff happens. But you've also got a bit of that prior knowledge, as in demographically, which is really useful, and knowing what to bring to that market and who is buying there and the standard of finishes and all the things that go into understanding your patch. So you've got that useful information. So never sort of throw away the fact that, damn, I spent so much time there, because that's really useful stuff. And obviously I know that you're also sensible, you'd be keeping that information and you'd be collating it, because that is really useful. And going back to it just means that you'll be that much faster when you do go back.
Yeah, that's IP that you've built up. It's never wasted. As you say, 18 months, 2 years might be worth coming back. So what would you know from that? Well, you would have seen the sort of product that's getting built, what buyers want in that area. I keep using a duplex as an example because it's, sort of mid-range, small sort of projects. What size of the duplex that people want there? What standard of finish do they want? You would have worked all this out. Who are the main agents in that area that do a lot of the selling of sites and the finished product? You would know all this. You'd have feasibilities that you did. Now, they have to be updated in 2 years' time. Sites would be a bit more expensive. Construction costs would have gone up a bit. And sale prices must have gone up a bit because they work again now. But there's a lot of IP. There's an example. Don't throw away all your old feasibilities. Keep them in a folder. I've got folders of feasibilities, 2-lot subdivisions, both in the type of project and the location. And I can go to
How old would your oldest one be, Bob?
They reach a use by date. Probably 2021, 22, probably as far back as I go, because before that it doesn't relate. Obviously not way back in the day. I was talking to somebody at the his slight digression at the workshop the other week, and they were saying, "Geez, you must have seen a lot of changes in the years." And I said, "Yeah, I have plenty." One of them was build costs, and I was relating it to a development that I did when I was working for a big development company in 1990, and they actually knew the site because they lived it was in Brisbane, right? So they lived in Brisbane, and they lived on the south side, and that's where I did the development for a big company I used to work for. It's 44 townhouses. It's a big one. And when I told them that in 1990, I bought that site for $7,000 per townhouse land content, it was like $290,000 or something. I bought a site for 40 townhouses. Can you believe?
Oh my gosh.
And they said, "Well, what did you build them for?" A 2-story, 3-bedroom townhouses. We were building them for $47,000.
Oh my gosh. Haven't construction costs changed?
That's 35 years ago.
Yeah. Wow. That is nuts.
So when you're talking about old feasibilities, and I'm saying, well, they do use it. Use by date. I wouldn't be using that feasibility.
No way. So let's talk about, Bob, when people are looking and they are, all over the place and playing blind man bluff for their patch.
Blind woman's bluff, Hilary.
Blind person's bluff. They're playing blind person bluff for their patch. And for me, that's kind of like goal setting. It really relates to choosing a goal and then working toward it. And that's very much like finding a patch. I've got lots of analogies happening today. I don't know what's going on with my brain. But it's really important that people do that. And when they're not, they're all over the place. What do you think mainly stops them from narrowing down and just going, hey, no, I'm staying here?
What stops them from doing something?
No, what stops them from choosing a patch and sticking to it?
Oh, I think some people have the shiny object. What would you call that? Not a syndrome. I don't know what you call that.
You would call it a syndrome.
They're always chasing the next shiny object. They never knuckle down and go deep, if you like.
Are they the sort of people that have way too many tabs open on their laptop? Because that would be me. No, I don't think so. No,
I don't think you chase shiny objects, but you do have an enormous amount of tabs open. Frightening.
Yes.
And I'm the opposite. You keep telling me, why do you keep closing things off?
Yeah, why would you not leave that tab open if you're going to go back?
Why would you not have 40 open tabs? Yeah. So back.
Yeah,
back
I think
on
track.
That's one thing that people do.
Yes.
And they look at one deal, it didn't work. Well, it might have been overpriced. It might have been in the wrong street. There could be a reason why it didn't work. Doesn't mean the next one you look at in that area might work. So you've got to give it a good go. And I suppose that, we go back to patches. How big is a patch? Well, it could be a council area if you're in Sydney, not Brisbane, because there's only one council.
Yes,
it could be a few suburbs. Like when we were involved in duplexes, and we're not at a particular patch. We had 3 suburbs where we were looking for duplexes at one point. That was the size of our patch. And it reached a point where it just wasn't profitable enough, but in 2 years probably will be again.
And that was in that particular patch. We're not talking about all duplexes. So
No.
I know. I'm just because when
some of our students are doing great duplexes.
Yes.
I was going through the other day, pulling out, all the people are doing projects at the moment, and subbies, little subbies. Tommy's 3-lot subby and some splitters and townhouses are always popular. Small, probably three pack townhouses, those sorts of things. How many people are actually doing them? I was quite excited. And to see that variety, and they're all in patches that work. Work now. And, so you've got to be prepared when when you're analysing your patch to go down to that detail. And in the patch, I mean, just a street can make a difference. You could be in a school zone, really popular school zone, and that school zone will probably finish on one side of the street and won't include the other side of the street. That could make two different values on different sides of the street, technically, and that can happen.
So you've just said, following the bouncing ball, or the people that the shiny object syndrome. And what's another reason, do you think? Or is it just that lack of commitment? Or are they just desperate to find a site? Because people that keep looking all over the place, and if this is you listening, if you're all over the shop, what's the reason you're not knuckling down?
I don't think they appreciate the importance of choosing an area and going deep.
There's your takeaway. This is your takeaway in this week's podcast. Choose your patch, choose that area, and go deep, stay there and get to know it.
It doesn't take long to get to see if a patch works or not. Because what we do, go into a patch, we have a look at who's developing. We can have a look these days. You can pretty well pick everything. When did they buy the site? You can work out, there's a whole heap of stuff you can do to work out. Is it working? Is it working for them? Hopefully. Hopefully they didn't make a mistake and they're not going to work for them. So, you're looking for activity. You're looking for somewhere to at least dig down and see if it works.
Do you know what I also think? A lot of it's not a lot of it, but sometimes it's a bit of self-sabotage, because they really want to do a development, but they don't really want to commit, because there's that risk and reward. And so many people are so afraid of failing that they jump all over the place, because then it's easy to say, I just can't find a site. Yeah, it's a great excuse. Oh, self-sabotage, it's epic. How good is that? I can't find one anywhere because I'm just all over the shop and I'm not committing to doing what it takes to get one. And then it is really a justification. It's a great reason why you're not moving forward or you're not finding a site. And yeah, sites aren't easy peasy to find, but when you know what you're doing and there are sites out there, the more that you chop and change and go all over the show, the less likely you are to find a site. So it is really about nailing down that patch, committing, and then just asking yourself that question: am I playing blind person's bluff, or am I really just self-sabotaging by going all over the show, or am I just following the next bouncing ball because such and such on Facebook keeps posting that they've got a deal, and every time someone else is showing you their show reel of their life, it's making you feel like you're inadequate, or you're a little bit envious, or all those other feelings come along from what we see other people do. I mean, we just fully told the truth. That site that we found took us, for that specific one in particular, close to a year to find that site.
Yeah,
it was very specific. That it's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world, but you got to know what you're doing to make sure you're doing it right. Yeah. So, what do you think of that self-sabotage, Bob?
I've seen it. It's not a personality trait I have, but and I'm thinking of somebody I think kept doing that. And it just becomes an excuse. And perhaps what's underlying that? Is it fear?
Fear of failure.
Yeah.
Fear of failure and that lack of confidence that they can do it. And in some cases, a lack of competence, where they haven't fully gone through and understand everything. Maybe, they haven't purchased our course. I'll just say it, put it right out there. It's got everything you need. It's the process. It's everything you have to do to get a property development done. But if you don't fully understand everything, you're just going to, keep stabbing in the dark and then moving patches, if we were using the patch as an excuse, because then you don't have to buy one. Then you don't really have to fully know. You really understand people when you see or notice the reasons they have for not doing things.
You can't make a mistake or stuff something up if you don't start it in the first place.
For sure. We can relate that to...
That's a good way of not failing. Don't do anything.
Oh, totally.
But that in itself is failure.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it is failure. And the best way to do that is to become competent. We had a new mentoring student yesterday who did the induction. Great guy. I can't wait. He's so exciting, really motivated. I love working with motivated people. And he said, I've already gone through the online course twice and he's been to a workshop. Like, I'm just so excited. And that makes us super excited.
It's contagious.
Oh my gosh. And we will do everything. I can't wait to see how successful he becomes. And somebody else yesterday I spoke to, I said, this is the road you're going to have to go down. You're going to need extra money. You're going to have to do this. She sends me a text in half an hour, and she had an investor with $500,000 who wants to joint venture with her. I'm like, you are a machine. We will definitely work with somebody like that. So it's the people that aren't afraid of failing. It's the people that commit to knowing what they need to know and deciding to move forward. Don't follow the bouncing balls. Commit to that patch. And if you're not developing, I'd be looking at yourself and asking yourself that question. Hey, like, what am I doing? Is it self-sabotage? Am I jumping all around the place? What do I need to know about my patch? What am I not understanding that I need to understand so I can move forward?
Yeah. And also, if you find a patch that just doesn't stack up today, be prepared to move on.
Yes, and then be prepared to go back in maybe a year's time and have a look, or 6 months. Who knows where that patch is on its demographic, on its journey. And it could be, 6 months away from working or something along those lines. Who knows, or 12 months away. But there are so many opportunities, and development's such an exciting world to be in, isn't it, Bob?
I love it. Why do you think I'm still doing it after all these years?
Yeah, exactly.
It's exciting and it's profitable. What more do you want?
So I suppose, Bob, yeah, it is exciting. And if you're listening today and you're interested in having a chat, just reach out. Happy to have a obligation-free chat with you about your journey, what it might look like for you. There's a link below if you want to have a chat with us. Also, with that new development we talked about, we are taking on investors for that. So if you're interested in being an investor in that project, it's going to be 12 months from start to finish, and it begins in December. So I'm pretty much fully subscribed, but I've got a few spaces left. If that's something you'd like to talk to me about, reach out to me. Right, Bob, anything else in closing?
No, other than we've looked so hard for that one and we've done all the groundwork. We might find another one really soon. So even if you're not in this one, you could be in the next one.
But that just leads on to when we're talking about a patch. Often when people develop in a patch, they do more than one in the same patch. And that's that same homework, that same learning, that same information being used again, which is just, you use the words your IP, and people don't realize the value of their IP. So you look after your IP and you let it make you incredibly successful. Okay, that's the end of episode 221. We'll catch you again next week. Bye.
Bye now.